Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is 5:32 p.m. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, this meeting is officially open with a quorum present. Please rise and let's state the pledge with Clint Bond.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
The public hearing is now called to order. This public hearing is to discuss the 2018-19 budget and proposed tax rate for the general fund, debt service fund, and child nutrition fund. Ms. Shiro, are you ready to begin your discussion?
Yes, good evening, President Jackson, Dr. Scribner, and members of the board. I'm here this evening to present the proposed 18-19 budgets for the general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund at a public hearing which is required by law and prior to June 30th annually. On the forefront, I want to say much work has been done in the development of this budget. When you think of the three budgets together, it's right over $952 million in budget this current coming school year. And so with that, let's get started at looking at what we've done. First, we're going to be looking at the general fund. And I will remind the board that this is now three funds. It was comprised of the attendance fund that we created earlier this year to incentivize students to be in attendance at school, to make sure that they're in school and kind of drop our absenteeism rate. And so for this coming school year, we're going to set aside a little less than $1.1 million. We're going to go ahead and appropriate that out to the campuses over the next year, and then at year end next year, we'll evaluate the program and see how this incentive fund has worked and see how we can modify it if necessary. Our second fund is the TRE fund that we created as a result of the successful election in November. We swapped 2 cents, and that 2 cents is now placed in Fund 198. And we use those funds to do certain projects that we have identified and have expressed to the voters. And so this coming school year, we're going to recognize just over $23.6 million in revenue in Fund 198. And we're going to appropriate approximately $10.6 million in expenditures. And then in the general fund, which is our normal fund, operating fund, we're going to recognize $731.5 million in revenue and just over $781 million in appropriations. And so this next slide just shows you the general fund so the public can see a little better of the combined general fund for next school year. Which then gives a combined revenue of $755 million and appropriations by function of a total of just under $793 million. That is a negative variance of $37.7 million, and so we'll be looking at that over the coming school year. And as I want to reiterate, we have many priorities that we've outlined to the board that comprise the appropriations this coming school year, including a 2% pay increase across the board for all employees and raising the beginning teacher salary to $53,000. The next fund here is the debt service fund. We're going to generate $108.4 million in revenue, and we're going to expend approximately the same amount in principal and interest payment next year. which a break-even debt service budget is great. That is the intent. We set the debt service tax rate for the sole purpose of discharging principal and interest on an annual basis, and you can see from the tax rate that basically where it's set at 29.2 cents, we're going to raise the necessary funds in local tax collections to ensure that we pay our principal and interest on bonds. So the next one is the Child Nutrition Fund, or the Food Service Fund. We anticipate approximately $56 million in revenue and about $51.4 million in appropriations for the coming school year. What is our next steps? We're going to have to adopt the tax rate in August. And what is recommended is what we adopted last year. It's going to be $1.06 per $100 valuation for maintenance and operations, and 29.2 cents per $100 valuation for debt service, or what we call interest and sinking, for a total tax rate of $1.35.2 cents per $100 valuation. And as I said, that is the exact same tax rate that we've had for several years now. So, in closing, I want to publicly thank, our leadership team and their staffs, and particularly the budget department, for the hard work and dedication that they have put into the budget over the last 9 to 10 months. We can't do this in isolation. And I particularly want to thank the board for attending the workshops and looking at the reports and giving us feedback, and to provide the necessary input for us to get to this point. You should know the challenges of budgeting in the school finance environment right now. And so with that, I'd like to say thanks to everyone for their efforts. And so with that, I'll take public comment.
Looks like there is none, Ms. Shiro.
Right.
Thank you for-
then.
Ms. Needham?
Thank you, President Jackson. Ms. Shiro, I want to thank you and your staff. You've done a wonderful job. I know it's a time-consuming, huge thing. Like you said, it's almost $1 billion. We're a huge business for children. And it's, you just always do a great job every year. And I know it's hard to find money, but we've just got to keep trimming things and working within our income. So I appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, Mrs. Needham. All right, that concludes this part of the agenda.
I'm sorry?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll hear public comment on the 2018-19 budget and proposed tax rate for the general fund, debt service fund, and child nutrition fund. Do we have any speakers regarding this topic? It appears we don't have any. The public hearing is now closed, and we will move to recognitions. Our first recognition this evening will be presented by Mr. Clint Bond from the Communications Department.
Thank you, President Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Scribner. Turn that on. The UIL state track meet was held in Austin, May 11th and 12th. And Fort Worth ISD students competed in all 4 running sessions for the first time in history. Has Danica Washington arrived? Would she please stand? Danica is from Benbrook Middle High School, and she earned the school's first state gold medal in the girls' 400 dash with a time of 57.08. She is coached by Ashley Rodriguez, and the principal at Benbrook Middle High is Mr. Richard Penland. Thank you. In the 5A division, the Trimble Tech 400-meter relay won the bronze medal with a time of 40.74. Team members, would you please stand as I call your names? They are juniors Gabrielle Woodard and Isom Williams. Here? No. And seniors Paul Bronner and Keyshawn Everly. This was the second year in a row for this quartet to compete in the state meet in the 400 relay. They say the third time is a charm. It was for Keyshawn Everly. Keyshawn, would you stand up again, please? Keyshawn competed in the 100-meter dash as a sophomore, finishing in third place. In his junior year, he won the silver medal. And this year, after anchoring the 400-meter relay team, Keyshawn won the gold medal in the boys' 100-meter dash. But he was not finished. He capped his interscholastic athletic career by winning the 200-meter dash in a time of 20.71. Keandra Davis, are you here? Participating in her first UIL track meet was Trimble Tech freshman Keandra Davis. After running an outstanding anchor leg on the 400-meter relay, Keandra won the 100-meter dash in 11.43, and then followed up by completing the 200-meter dash with a time of 23.40. Keyshawn, one more time, if you would stand, please. Our athletic staff believes this, and Keandra, if you would stand also, please. Believes that this is the first time in our history, in Texas history, that a girl and a boy from the same school won the 100-meter dash and 200-meter dash at the same state meet.
Wow.
The Trimble Tech girls and boys track coaches are Donna Wilson and Clayton Brookins, respectively. Both coaches are Trimble Tech alumni and former track standouts themselves. The principal at Trimble Tech is Omar Ramos. Would the family members of these students who we've introduced already please stand? Our next sport is tennis. Pascal High School juniors Shauna Galvin and Emily Buell. Only one of them is here, and that is Emily Buell. Would you please stand? Thank you. Emily and Shauna were the Region 1 girls double champions, which took them to the state tennis championships at A&M. Shauna is not here because she's playing in a tournament, and they'll have to wait for another year before bringing home the gold, but they are the state bronze medal winners in 6A girls doubles. And Coach Rhonda Pensick and her staff, Jason Thomas and Hannah Mitchum, thank you very much. If you would stand, please. And do you have any family members with you this evening? Okay. And Arlington Heights softball became only the second Fort Worth ISD softball team to participate in the state softball tournament. On their way to the state tournament, Arlington Heights defeated the number 1 team, Canyon. Although the state semifinal game did not go in the Lady Jackets' favor, they concluded their outstanding season with a 37-4 final record. Some of the team members are currently in Colorado competing in a tournament, but those who are here will stand as I call their names. Sophomore Emily Andrus. Senior Ashley Sagambaluri. Junior Diana Hernandez. Sophomore Savannah Volmert. Freshman Jordan Jacobs. Sophomore Jaylee McDonald. Sophomore Bailey Roden. Sophomore Victoria Montez. Freshman Maggie Robertson. Sophomore Stephanie Chico. Senior Melinda Martinez. Senior Alyssa Martinez. Junior Alexei Howard. And sophomore Alejandra Arellano. Melinda Martinez, Jaylee McDonald, and Ashley Sagambaluri were recently named to the State Girls Coaches Association All-Star Team. Arlington Heights head coach is Mike Towson, assisted by coaches Shannon Lazenby and Alec Rourke. And the principal at Arlington Heights is Sarah Weeks. If you're a member of the family of the softball players, would you please stand?
At this time, we are moving on to action items, proclamation and honoring Pauline Gasca Valenciano. Trustee Cinto Ramos requested this, most wonderful honor, and I'm going to hand it over to him.
I believe President Jackson, as an action item, I've made the motion to honor Mrs. Pauline Valenciano with a proclamation today, so I guess if we'll take a vote first, is that appropriate?
Absolutely. I just wanted you to open it up.
I appreciate you.
Moved by Trustee Jacinto Ramos, seconded by Trustee Paz. And the proclamation passes unanimously.
So if I may, President Jackson, like to read the proclamation. I'd like to begin with thanking my colleagues on the board for supporting my request to do this out of respect for Ms. Pauline Gasca Valenciano's recent passing. I'd wanted some time to pass so that could reach out to her daughter Jody, who is a dear friend and supporter of efforts that we do in our communities. And so like to read the proclamation while we get a chance to see the amazing human being who's up here on the screen. So it reads, whereas Pauline Gasca Valenciano was a champion of many causes, including civil rights, women's rights, advocating for farm workers, single-member districts, fighting against segregation and other oppressions. And whereas Pauline Gasca Valenciano was a longtime precinct chair, an election worker passionate about getting people to vote, no matter how they voted. And whereas Pauline Gasca Valenciano co-founded the annual Cesar Chavez March and the 16 de Septiembre Parade that now kicks off Hispanic Heritage Month. And whereas Pauline Gasca Valenciano was recognized by the National Association of Human Rights for her many contributions, named an Outstanding Woman of Fort Worth, served on the Fort Worth Human Relations Committee and numerous boards and civic groups. And whereas Pauline Gasca Valenciano was instrumental in helping to decentralize community services, served on the Fort Worth Neighborhood Advisory Council, and recognized as a political pioneer for her work by the Tarrant County Democratic Women's Club. Now, be it hereby resolved by the Fort Worth Independent School District Board of Trustees that it is hereby proclaimed that Tuesday, June 26, 2018, as a special day to honor Pauline Gasca Valenciano for her many contributions to the Fort Worth Independent School District and the City of Fort Worth, approved on the 26th day of June 2018 by the Board, Fort Worth ISD Board of Trustees. With that, I'd like to add some commentary that I enjoyed reading the article from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that described some of the work that she did, which included where she was born. That it was a book that I was turned to when it was first published. It's called The History of Mexican Fort Worth, The Stories from the Barrio. And in that book, it references parts of town that were named primarily in Spanish. So she was born in La Fundición, south side of Fort Worth, Funky Town, Texas. Only one I ever knew growing up was north side, south side, Diamond Hill. When that book was published, which she's a part of, Fanny Cancino Montes over in the north side, they educated me about El Tipi, about the history of how segregation had torn apart our city and our town, and how it was people like her and others who are also in this room right now, including her family, who made things happen for this town and pushed when the town didn't want to be pushed. She had a 5th grade education, and as I exchanged information with Jody today, to elaborate that, all of her children gone and completed college, and even from Harvard. And her grandchildren, 10 of her grandchildren, attended, completed college, or about to finish college. I think that in honoring her and recognizing how important education was for her, and in the times that we're in, right here, right now in 2018, the things that are happening, people like myself, spoken to by her, cannot sit on the sidelines. We have a duty and a responsibility to do something, and because of her and her legacy, we're doing that kind of work. She has supported me tremendously from the second that I got elected. And with a humble voice, she reminded me regularly of what my job was to be, which was to serve the community and to not be apologetic about what is happening in the Latina community. She had also been part of asking me to be the Grand Marshal of the 2016 16 de Septiembre in downtown Fort Worth, and for that I'll always cherish that. The photo that we saw earlier was her as a grandparent with all of her kids going to Fort Worth ISD, and there at the Lily B. Clayton Grandparents' Day. With this, I'd like to invite we've got a special presentation by our friends, which is going to be headed up by Itzel Robles and Benjamin Domensain, and then we'll invite the family up. Jody, please.
I want to thank the school board, Ms. Jackson, President, and Cinto, and our friends. Many times we've come here with Mom. My name's Jody Valenciano Perry. I'm her oldest daughter, and there's my three other sisters here. Again, I want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. It was 20 days ago today that we lost Mom. And we're still trying to get used to that. It doesn't seem like she's gone yet, but I don't think she ever will be, because what she has left is a legacy for generations to come for many school children. She was born here in Fort Worth on the south side in Worth Heights, and you can imagine her excitement when she was going to school for the first time as a first grader, to be told she could not attend her neighborhood school 3 blocks away at Worth Heights. There was no school for her to go to since the color of her skin kept her from that. So the founders of Immaculate Heart Church, which were my grandparents who came in 1910, they were one of the founders of that church, and they sought out to find an education for these children. Carswell Air Base at the time, which is now called the Joint Air Base, donated an air barrack, a housing barrack for the students. And so they put the barracks there on the parking lot of the church, and the first, second, third, and fourth graders attended a 2-room classroom. So Mom went to school there, which was a block away. She went there to the 4th grade. They still would not allow her to go to Worth Heights. So they had to walk across the tracks to go to South Fort Worth. So that's where she went to school up to the 5th grade. She did return to college at Tarrant County College and saw that it wasn't, it was not decentralized. So she fought for Tarrant County College to be decentralized, where she did attend. She also fought segregation all of her life, and any injustices that she saw. Just because it's the law doesn't make it right, so she fought that, and she taught us as children to fight those laws that are not fair for the inequities that she saw. She was very excited to work on redistricting when the school board received single-member districting, and also with the city of Fort Worth and the colleges. She's never given up. I want to recognize her and you for allowing us to be here for this special recognition. It serves justice that although she was not allowed to go to her neighborhood school, that her grandchildren are, and my 2 granddaughters at Lily B, and they love that school. And that's the picture of Grandparents' Day. She never missed a program until she became very ill. But she has always fought for public education, and she has always fought for bilingual ed. I was a bilingual teacher in its first year. We had no curriculum at that time, but she was always very supportive of Rudy Rodriguez and Joe Martinez, late Joe Martinez. They were very instrumental in setting up bilingual ed here. But I want my sisters to come up, and all the family and friends that are here to support Mom. Could y'all all please stand? As my sister Jacqueline Valenciano, she was also the first Latina to be a congressional page for Congressman Jim Wright when he was Speaker of the House. And then my sister Susie Carranza, she just retired from Tarrant County College as a counselor. And my sister Diane Rodriguez, she came in from out of town. She was last year's National Counselor Advisor for Higher Ed recipient last year. So we were all educators. We've all blazed trails because she taught us to never accept the status quo. And when doors were closed, you just found another door to enter and to own your space. And for that, I'm thankful for you again to allow this. Do you want to say anything? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Come on, Ben, how many?
Carmen, come in.
Carmen, thank you for the presentation.
And a special thanks to Carmen Garcia. She's been there for a long time. Mom's been a big supporter of her group, and they were there for her 80th birthday a couple of years ago. So thank you very much. Thank you all.
I would like to encourage all the students who are here
and my alma mater, Trimble Tech, yeah, to stay in school. You will flourish as long as you have good seating and good support from your family and friends. And choose your friends wisely. God bless.
I just wanted to say something that I always remember Mom talking about, that she may not have been rich, she may not have had a brand-new car or a big, beautiful house, but she had her children. That was a beautiful gift to her, and it was important that we all had an education. She taught us mainly, the whole thing was whether or not you were going to go to college, it was which one you were going to. And so I challenge all you students to make that commitment to go to college. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here, and let's give one more round of applause and honor. And now we're moving on to number 7, Lone Star Governance, preliminary data for IR and Leadership Academy campuses. Dr. Scribner, do you have a few words?
Thank you very much, President Jackson, members of the board, and Fort Worth ISD school community. So it was 12 months ago, exactly a year ago, when we began the 2017-18 school year with grave concerns. We had 2 schools, John T. White and Maud Logan Elementary, who had been rated by TEA as improvement required, not meeting standards. Logan for 6 years in a row, and John T. White for 5 years in a row. Had they not achieved standard today, we would be in a very different position. Just one more year of failure for either school would have resulted either in closure of those schools or triggered a state takeover, state intervention of Fort Worth ISD governing board. Additionally, we had 4 schools, Como, Mitchell Boulevard, West Handley, and Walton Elementary School, that were IR for 3 years in a row. So a year ago, we had a great deal of struggle academically. It appears, and we are very confident given the preliminary data, it appears that all of these schools have made standard and are off the list. They no longer are IR. And of the seven multiple year IR, all but 1 have made standard. These schools achieved double-digit improvements for all 5 of our leadership academies that you're going to hear about today. Early results indicate that our strategy is working, focusing on fewer things: elementary literacy, middle years mathematics, and college and career preparedness, as the young people were just told about. Our commitment is worthy. Nonprofits like Read Fort Worth have partnerships with the entire community, elected officials, Mayor Price, the business community, Matt Rose, the faith community, nonprofits and philanthropic community. And finally, the fact that the problem never was the students. There's nothing wrong with our students. Our students can succeed. We simply have to invest in them. So our trajectory is on the ascent. But at the same time, we have a great deal of work to do. We had several schools, mainly middle schools, slide on to the list for the first year. We're going to pivot this summer and focus on that. Those plans are already underway. And since we have since our strategy does produce results and we have momentum, we're confident that this positive trajectory will continue. With that, we want to give you a brief presentation simply on those leadership academies, and then hear from the board. Charlie Carroll is our Chief Academic Officer, and he'll take us through this presentation. Charlie.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. President Jackson, members of the board, Associate Superintendent Arispe sends her greetings from Minneapolis. She was wanting to come in and deliver what is really a series of good news slides, but the Council of Great City Schools called and she went. So I'm going to walk through several slides this evening, not just about the leadership academies, but also talking with some greater breadth about the improvement required campuses that we had moving forward into the 17-18 school year. It's important to note that what I'm sharing with you tonight is extremely preliminary information, and it fits into only domains 1 and some part of domain 3. We still have several files, large files, that we need from the state in order to come up with final numbers. So with that in mind, take these as preliminary numbers because that's exactly what they are. Additionally, it's important to note that those of you who've already gone to the TEA website and pulled down the portal and looked and seen how campuses in some of your districts have done, we are using, as the state uses, a PEAM subset applied for these numbers. So when TEA downloads them into the portal, the results are downloaded as a gross number. We have what is called a PEAM snapshot day at the end of October every year, and TEA uses that PEAM snapshot number to determine our accountability. We use those numbers as well. So there can be a difference of a percentage point or two in what we report, just so you know. What we're looking at is these 3 domains falls into student achievement, which is the information that we have, and it can fall over some into the closing the gaps in domain 3. But what we're looking at primarily this evening is simply student achievement data that falls squarely into domain 1. So last year, as Dr. Scribner said, the board took it as a priority to look at those campuses who had traditionally struggled in this district and be creative, do something different, and go in a different direction. And so with the assistance of the leadership and from the board, we created leadership academies assisted by the Rainwater Foundation, and we have made a tremendous difference in the lives of students at these campuses this year. So when you look at this slide, these are the things that were done at that campus, at those campuses, pardon me. The campuses were open longer. We made tailored teacher hires into those campuses, created a culture of high expectations, and fed students, kept them in a secure environment, and changed the trajectory of some of their lives. These are the campuses that we're talking about. I believe Dr. Scribner mentioned most, if not all of them, in his introductory comments. And these are the campuses that I'll be giving you results from when we're talking about leadership academies primarily. So in year 1 for academic performance at our leadership academies, what you have on the slide in front of you is a reading score from 16-17 to 17-18. So the 48% to 59%, 59% is a 17-18 score, and that Leadership Academy gain from the year previous is 11 points compared to a district gain of 5 points. Does that make sense to everyone when you're looking at the slide? All right, that's what the reading academies were able to accomplish in a year with the supports that we put in place for them, with your support, and make a difference for some students at those campuses. In the Middle School Leadership Academy at Forest Oak, this is the difference that was made at that academy as well. You can see as you look through this that compared to district gains for our middle schools, we have challenges at the middle school level. We'll be coming with a plan for those campuses in very short order because even the campuses that are doing relatively well at the middle school level, we need to improve. And so you can look and see what was done at Forest Oak is a very good improvement over where they were the previous year. So here's the thing that is really an interesting and outstanding and celebratory part of this conversation with the board, and it's one of the reasons that Associate Superintendent Arispe wanted to be here, was to click this button the next time. Because this, when we started the year, this is how we started the year. All right, these are the campuses that were IR-rated campuses, including leadership academies, and this is how we're ending the year, with preliminary met standards at every one of those campuses. So I really think it's a nice thing, and I think we may run the risk at this meeting of doing a little too much clapping, but I don't know if you can ever celebrate too much. And I think this is a really outstanding achievement for these principals, for these teachers, but really for these families and kids. So if we could give them a round of applause, I think that'd be nice. That's a great slide. All right, at the elementary IR campuses, what you saw is outstanding gains as well. And the interesting thing about these campuses is there was differentiated support provided to them through PLI, through leadership, through the academics division for a great deal of the year. And at many of these campuses, you saw gains at these campuses that rivaled those that were achieved at the leadership academies. Outstanding work at these campuses. And at our secondary campuses for the 2017-18 improvement required campuses, we still have work to do at our secondary campuses. I'll give you an example. At Glencrest 6th, Glencrest made gains, as you can see, and those gains outpace district gains. But because of where Glencrest 6 started the year, they will likely not make the same jump as many of our other elementary campuses do. But doesn't diminish the fact that there were great gains made at that campus this year. And at Polytechnic High School, you can look and see where Polytechnic struggles, and in the English 1 and English 2, if you look across and look at the district gains in English 1 and English 2, we are making some slow progress there, but we're going to have to double down and do better work at Poly for the English 1 and English 2 students there. As I said before, this is incredibly preliminary data, particularly at the secondary level, because there are some enormous consolidated data files to be downloaded and a timeline that I can give you. We should be receiving those files the second or third week of July. And when we receive those files, we can start churning them through our systems and be able to come back to the board and have a more complete accounting for where we are as a district. TEA intends to release district standards, district identifiers on their new system on August 15th. And we would think that we would be able to give you very much of a heads up prior to that. So with that, if there are any questions, observations, concerns, or anything like that, I'll be happy to answer them if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Yes. You're welcome.
At this time, we will hear public comment. Let me remind you that because of restrictions by the Texas Open Meetings Act, board members may not engage in a verbal exchange about a subject that has not been posted. We will listen and take notes, but the board is prohibited from responding to any inquiries made during a board meeting on any topic not posted on the agenda. However, the board may reply with 1, a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, 2, recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry, or 3, direct the person to visit with staff about the issue. While our board listens to concerns of a general nature and issues of common and individual concern, the board will not hear complaints about specific individual employees or public officers during the public comment session. Speakers shall refrain from mentioning names of individual employees or public officers during their comments. Any employee, parent, or other member of the public is asked to comply with the appropriate grievance policy to have a complaint heard pursuant to the applicable board policy. In accordance with board policy BED, local speakers shall have a 3-minute time limit, and we ask that you please observe this rule. Furthermore, a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another speaker. Delegations of 5 or more persons shall appoint one person to present their views before the board with the time not to exceed 5 minutes. Sarah Jordan is our first speaker, and Janelle Fluchet is our second.
Good evening, Dr. Scribner and board members. My name is Sarah Jordan, and I'm a teacher at Daggett Montessori, and this is my 35th year of teaching. And for the most of those 20 years, or 20 of those 35 years, I've taught in Montessori schools in the public schools. I'm here tonight to express my appreciation and support for Veronica Delgado, our principal for the past year. It can be difficult to find a public school principal who is passionate about the Montessori philosophy. When Mrs. Delgado came to our Daggett last year, our staff prepared for a change. And whenever administration changes at a Montessori school, we anticipate one of 2 things will occur. Either the principal will enthusiastically understand and embrace and endorse the Montessori philosophy, or they will be our worst nightmare. I have experienced both. When Mrs. Delgado returned from her Montessori training last year, she was very excited.
If I could, please don't use an employee name.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
She was very excited, enlightened, and passionate about the Montessori method in teaching. We felt very blessed to have her appointed as our principal. And we look forward to many more years under her leadership. We believe that Fort Worth ISD made a wise decision in choosing her as for our school principal. More than any other principal I have ever worked with, she has been uniquely been able to sow a bright vision for the future as well as a spirit of hope for our school. She greeted us with a warm smile, a listening ear, and an open door every day. She's made a positive impact on our students, our faculty, and our school. Thank you for giving her to us.
Thank you. President Jackson, Dr. Scribner. I'm Janelle Flushy, special education teacher at Daggett Montessori. I've been teaching in public Montessori schools for the past 24 years, the last 17 of those at Daggett Montessori. It was 1 year ago I started to rethink my future in public Montessori education. I was deeply concerned about the future of our school when a traditional principal with no Montessori background was assigned to our campus. I was not willing to look at her successful past, her diplomacy, her honesty, her resourcefulness, or her ambition. I focused on one thing only. She did not know Montessori. I was not focusing on the whole, and I was wrong. She took all of her amazing characteristics and threw them wholeheartedly into understanding and learning Montessori education. We have ended our year with excitement for the next. I am looking forward to seeing what role I can play in making our school better than it has ever been before. I also want to take a moment to share how appreciative I am as a special education teacher. She has an amazing understanding of special education. She also knows how important this diverse population is to our school community. Her knowledge of special education law allowed our ARD meetings to run smoothly, and her willingness to make sure we had found all possible ways to help each child allowed for parents and teachers to feel their needs were being met. So I am here to say thank you for giving our school our principal, for understanding our unique needs, and for continuing to support our school of choice. Through this, I have learned that when you do not look at the whole picture, you miss the details, and you do not see the picture as a work of art. Thank you. Thank you. Dorothea Salerno Lucero. And next up will be Stephen Poole.
Thank you for allowing me to speak with you. I sent an email out to the board members, and this is my opportunity to read this aloud, and I appreciate you allowing me to do so. On 24 September 2017, I delivered an EpiPen valued at $600, along with the citrazine oral medication to the school nurse to protect my child during the 2017-18 school year in the event that she should have an allergic reaction. My daughter is allergic to red chilies, Takis, hot Cheetos, and any food with red chilies in it. On June 2nd, 2018, the last day of the school year, I requested that the nurse return the EpiPen and citrazine. She could not locate the EpiPen. She returned the citrazine and said she cannot return what she does not have. After multiple communications, June 2nd to the 25th of June 2018, with the principal, the school nurse, the health department director, and my daughter's teacher, I was informed that the EpiPen had not been found, and also that it had been missing for a significant time, placing my child's welfare at risk during the school year. My daughter had been on field trips with the school, and it had not been sent with her. I assumed, since I had placed the citrazine and the EpiPen with the school nurse, that my daughter was safe while at school. My daughter's teacher said she did not know that my daughter had an EpiPen, nor had the nurse provided her with my daughter's citrazine or EpiPen on field trips. This event raised the following concerns that I request the school system address. A, medical devices like this EpiPen are required for the safety and welfare of the children. My child was placed in undue risk by the negligence of the school. A simple allergic event becomes a life-threatening event without the immediate application of the EpiPen. I entrusted the EpiPen with the school staff to protect my child and entrust them in both proper control, security, and application of the device. My daughter's teacher did not know that the nurse had an EpiPen and medication for my daughter, and the communication between the nurse and teacher is important. I request Fort Worth ISD immediately implement a system in which teachers and substitutes are made aware of any medical devices and medications of their students at the beginning of the school year, verbally and in writing. The school system failed to properly control the medical device placed in their care. During my inquiries, it was relayed to me that some other medications were later found missing. This means more than just my child was placed at risk by the school system. I request that the Fort Worth ISD immediately implement a system of positive controls for all such medical devices and medicines to include formal receipt procedures, periodic inventory validation, and inventory reconciliation with proper notifications to parents and caregivers. In addition, when I brought the EpiPen at the beginning of the school year, the nurse did not recognize what an EpiPen was for. The nurse asked, "How often does she get it?"
Time, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen Westhoff.
Good evening, Ms. Jackson, members of the board. I'm here tonight to talk about the Student Code of Conduct. It's way down on the agenda tonight, and I know you'll get to it eventually. But it's an important document because it sets standards for our students, our parents, and our schools on what is acceptable behavior for students in our classrooms. There's a major policy shift in here, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. State law has long given teachers the right to send a student to the office to maintain effective discipline in the classroom. That's not meant that a kid doesn't have his pencil, so go to the office. It's for serious disruptive behaviors that interrupts the learning environment not only for that student, but for all students in that classroom. So in Fort Worth, for at least 15 years, when a kid is sent to the office for behavior like that, they couldn't return to the same class period. It forced the administration to address the behavior of the students. It allowed the teachers in the class to regroup and get instruction back on track for the other 24 students in that classroom. And think how important that is now that we're shifting to our secondary schools to 45-minute class periods. The shift now will be that a student can be returned to the same class period as long as an administrator does something. Now, earmuffs, kids. I asked the question of administrators last week. So if a kid says, F you, to a teacher and is sent to the office for that behavior, you're telling me that kid can come right back to the classroom? And the answer was yes, maybe as little as 10 minutes. And the expectation is that they at least apologize to the teacher. That is unacceptable in this district. When we're trying to focus in on learning and learning environment, there are too many people that are worried about addressing the individual student who is disruptive learning to the detriment of the other 24 in the classroom. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention tonight, that in the Student Code of Conduct, even though it seems like words are just changed around, it's a big policy shift for this district, and it's something for us all to consider. Thank you. Sorry, kid.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Scribner and Board of Trustees. My name is Kristen Westhoff, and I've been a teacher with this district for 25 years. Please know that I know this is a very big opportunity to speak to you tonight. Earlier this year, I gave a parent education presentation with a fellow teacher of mine. The presentation was about grace and courtesy, one of the many principles that we teach our students at Daggett Montessori. We do this every morning. We acknowledge the good things that happen to us. We create a safe environment so our kids can express their concerns, and then we allow the children to come up with their own solutions. I'd like to give you an example. This year, one of my students voiced a concern over being rushed in the morning because his two older brothers took showers first. We soon learned that if we let him take a shower first, he could do the rushing. This created a peaceful morning for this young man. The reason why I'm here today is to acknowledge you, the board. I'd like to practice what I preach. Thank you very much for giving us a principal that has embraced our Montessori community. So, thank you for our principal, and thank you for staying behind our school.
Thank you. Sally Gould and Carrie Keith.
Dr. Scribner and board members. Okay. My name is Sally Gouldy. I have 3 children at Daggett Montessori. My family has been at DMS for 8 years. I am the current PTA president and serve on the site-based committee. I have been on the PTA executive board for the past 8 years and have volunteered hundreds of hours annually to our community. As a very involved parent, I was very concerned last year when both of our admin retired and we were in a position of replacing them. Myself and 2 DMS parents put together a parent survey, collected feedback, and penned a letter to Fort Worth ISD expressing our concerns. We were upset and worried about what we felt was a lack of priority given to our Montessori, lack of priority given to Montessori experience and training. You made your decision, and I was skeptical, but decided to keep an open mind. One of the philosophies of DMS is to provide a time each morning for students to express their acknowledgments and concerns. Tonight, we thought it would be fun to take the time to sincerely acknowledge the fantastic job you did in hiring our admin. You took into all the considerations we asked and gave our community so much more. In the face of my open skepticism, Mrs. Delgado responded by being open and warm and professional from the very beginning. She has responded to every email, every request for a meeting, and every phone call, and there have been many. I live very close to the school and see her car there until 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and even later regularly. Her commitment to her job is beyond reasonable dispute. As the PTA president, I have had the opportunity to speak with Mrs. Delgado about various parent concerns and have been impressed every time by her incredible and consistent professionalism, and even most especially when we have disagreed. And for the first time in DMS history, we have a minority admin that accurately reflects and represents our community. She is not only bilingual, but has demanded, sometimes at the expense of our gray hair, to translate every single PTA flyer and weekly newsletter into Spanish. She is passionate about our community. I will be candid, I did not want to like her. Mrs. Delgado completely and totally won me over with her heart, passion, professionalism, and work ethic. In my experience as PTA president and site-based representative, she has meticulously followed Fort Worth ISD policy and is a huge advocate and asset to our district and every student on our campus. So in closing, I was unsure of your decision last year. I doubted you. But tonight, I want to thank you. I want to acknowledge Fort Worth ISD leadership, and especially you, Dr. Scribner, for your impeccable leadership, integrity, and for hearing our concerns and giving us Veronica Delgado and Mrs.
Thank you.
Jackson. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Scribner and ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Carrie Keith. I am a lower elementary teacher at Daggett Montessori and mom to 2 DMS students. I am here tonight to voice my support for our principal. Upon the appointment of this administrator to our school, none of us knew what to expect. Over the past year, she has proven to be a supportive, passionate, and thoughtful administrator, earning the respect of colleagues and parents alike. Immersing herself in her training of Montessori teachings and philosophy, she began the process of leading our school to a more authentic version of itself. An advocate for both students and faculty, I witnessed the tireless hours, heart, and soul she put into her responsibility as the leader of our school community. Fairly new to Montessori myself, I am grateful for the ally and mentor I found in our leader. I thank you for providing Daggett Montessori School with such a knowledgeable, hardworking, and dedicated principal. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your leadership, and most importantly, thank you for your commitment to the students of Fort Worth ISD.
Thank you. I have a card that says for name 62618. The street is Walton. Would that be you, Ms. Leaf? I thought it might be. May I place your name on the card?
Sure. Sorry about that.
No worries, thank you. And Luis Castillo as well.
Good evening, Dr. Scribner and Board of Trustees. My name is Heather Leaf, and I'm a parent also at Daggett Montessori. Last year, about this time, we were anxiously awaiting the announcement of our incoming administration, both our principal and assistant principal. I admit I was really nervous about the transition, and I wrote to some of you with my concerns, and you assured me that the assignment would be carefully made and that you valued our school, and that this principal would lead us with integrity. You may not know this about our school, but we have one of the highest, if not the highest, percentage of identified dyslexic students. As a mom of one of these students, I have made it my responsibility to advocate for these students. So here I stand, a year later, happy to report that it's been a really good year. My daughter, who has in years past really struggled to enjoy school, said this was her favorite year so far. I owe this to her beloved teachers, to her dear friends, and to the administration who from day one called her by name. As a parent advocate, I am proud of us. The collaboration between our PTA, our teachers, and this administration is producing real support for our kids. It can be intimidating as a parent to talk to a principal about what we're doing wrong because she's the expert. However, our principal has been welcoming of new ideas, and she is using her years of experience to improve our school. Her vision is contagious, and I wish I had so much more time to tell you about it. Our principal and our assistant principal are obviously passionate about educating all of our kids. So I'm here tonight to say thank you, Fort Worth ISD, for placing these ladies with us. I believe they are a great fit for our school, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Castillo?
Good evening, Board President Jackson, esteemed board members, staff. My name is Luis Castillo. I'm the president of Texas Association of Professional Educators here in Fort Worth, and I want to speak to the agenda item to set parameters to be included in the RFP for Food Delivery Services Management Company. I do want to thank Board President Jackson for facilitating my request for information. I'm waiting for that information, and I wish I could have had that information so I could speak more intelligent on the subject matter. However, I do want to point out that at the budget of tonight that was presented, the preliminary budget for the food services, if you take note, the food services fund budget is in the black. For every year, I've done the research on the CAPERS, there's a funding balance in the positive side. I believe in the budget, proposed budget is showing a projected ending balance of 4.5 million plus another 5.5 million projected for this year, which will give the fund balance about 9.7 million. To me, that this is a self-sufficient operation in food services. You know, they're not in the red. And I think that there may be a misperception that they're losing money, and it's not. They're not losing money, and your data, your own budget shows that. You know, so I want to point out that, and I totally, commend Mr. Moore's study, his tireless efforts on the study. You know, I'm pretty sure that he'll be happy when it's over. But I do have a question that some of the things that the study points out are the CNS staff are not responsible for. For example, the lack of home cooking. That's guided by the state guidelines, and if we don't follow those guidelines, we don't get the money. Another thing is the long lines. That's an infrastructure issue. Most of our cafeterias are old. And also the campus principals, they set the time for the lunch. I'm going to ask in the most honorable and respectful way that I can to the board to defer action on this item until a later date, until we have a better handle on the food services, until I get the data. And we can proceed this once we look at the data. I believe we stand for continuous improvement, but there also has to be transparency. Transparency is very much part of continuous improvement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now recess and reconvene in the board conference room. accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened the meeting at 5:32 PM in the boardroom with a quorum present, recessed open session in the boardroom, and it is now reconvened at 6:42 PM in open session in the board conference room with a quorum present. We'll move on to, I want to first remind everyone that 11B1 is being pulled off of action items, and we'll move on to discussion of consent agenda items. And actually, 11B1 is from consent. My apologies. 11B1, it's EduSense. It's the upgrade and support of the Mach B technology EduSense response to intervention system. Yes, ma'am. Any questions, anybody?
I had a question about the mentor. After school, I had it circled on the other paper.
Which one, Ms. Moss?
It's a,
WIS?
Oh, good, we got the new meeting dates.
Region 10, number 11, B11.
Item
What is that?
B11.
Yeah, B11, 11B11.
Right. Region 10, Education Service
With
Center.
somebody,
I believe Elsie Shiro could address that.
okay.
Yes, Region 11 provides mentoring services if in fact somebody decides to go through Region 11 for that service. This MOU simply allows us for Region 10 to pay through the district. And so what they do is they pay for those services, they pay the teacher, and then we summarily then run it through payroll, and then we go ahead and pay the respective employee. So the MOU is necessary for that flow-through.
Oh, I wasn't talking about the money part. I was just wanting information about the district mentor extra duty stipend payments. Not necessarily the payments, I just wanted to know what it all entails.
So the programmatic
The
aspect of it?
programmatic side
Know
of
what,
it.
yeah, not the payments.
Sure. Cynthia?
Yes, so actually, we don't facilitate that piece. That's actually facilitated directly with Region 10 and the teachers.
Oh, okay, so it's one of those programs that, do they go there?
Yes, they work with Region 10, and the only thing that we facilitate is the principal is aware of who is involved in the program and what teachers are designated as the mentors.
Okay.
So it's passed through, right?
Any other questions? I have a question. I think it would be you, Mr. Carroll, page 63, approve annual renewal of NWEA MAP, Universal Math Growth and Progress Monitoring System.
Yes, ma'am.
When taxpayers generously supported the one-to-one initiative, it's moving into middle school this year, right?
Yes.
And how will the new teachers and the middle school teachers learn about utilization of this? I look at this like Achieve 3000. Is it similar?
Yes and no.
Okay.
One of the reasons that there is a significant cost difference between the two is MAP is a measurement device. You do it 3 times a year, and they go and it gives you benchmarks for where students are. The reason that Achieve is different is that Achieve is instructional. And so what MAP does, MAP can give you strategies, MAP can give you help with small groups, it can do things like that, but it is not an instructional piece. It is a diagnostic math program.
Okay, and then how will we implement this into middle school and with the one-to-one?
It'll be, well, quite frankly, the way that we're implementing one-to-one, it'll be easier with 8th grade and with our 6th grade centers. And it'll still be used in exactly the same way in the middle schools that have 6th grades that are not centers and just 7th grades, because they have access to computers now, and we've been using MAP at the end of this year. So they'll continue with the process that they currently have in place.
Okay, and so there's professional development in place for all that for the new teachers and
Achieve
At
and
Regal Building.
NWEA are both remarkably helpful in that regard, yes.
So that's exciting for us.
Yes, it
Cool.
is.
All right, great. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, please try to stay on the subject, Dr. Sutherland, but
Can we talk about, I really don't. I'm concerned about the EpiPen thing.
that's not on the agenda, so we can't talk about it. We can add it for future meeting,
Can
though.
we have a report?
Sure,
Future?
It's great.
She said, okay, I'll be quiet, okay? Notice that I'm being quiet.
Okay, and that will conclude the discussion of agenda items. We'll now recess for executive session.
Don't you feel it too? I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive. I love every moment with you, and I want you to know I do. I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive.
It hasn't hit me that I'm graduating yet.
You good? Oh, we're graduating. We're graduating.
Very good.
The gold seal.
Once we get past graduation.
Holding their first ever graduation ceremonies are Young Men's Leadership Academy and Benbrook Middle High School.
But I think it's going to go really well.
As you can see, that ceremony is about to get underway. And there's a lot that's special about our graduates, too. For one thing, district-wide, they earn more than $92 million in merit scholarships and grant offers. That's up from $36 million just 3 years ago. On top of that, they've got big plans.
TCU in the fall on a full ride scholarship.
I'm going to UNT.
Tarleton and doing some photography.
I'll be attending Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. I want to major in mechanical engineering.
Definitely college.
But before they go anywhere, they've got to cross the stage. Let's join them.
Look at those smiles. You guys look great.
Every graduation is special, whether it's a school's first commencement or 112th graduation ceremony for Northside High School. This, the class of 2018. All year, our district has focused on pre-K, third grade reading, middle years math, the learning model for instruction, and the importance of equity across our system.
Natalie K. Jakes.
Well, this is what all that work is about, sending our young men and women into the world prepared for college, career, and community leadership.
I think what I want to take from YMLA and I want my brothers to take from YMLA is a strong work ethic.
So no matter what grade you teach or what position you hold on campus, you've helped the class of 2018 reach this milestone.
You know, these young men have become my family over the last 6 years. I met these guys when they were all shorter than me, and now they're all taller than me.
And if you don't think our students appreciate you, think again.
Miss Gilbert!
How are you? I brought your yearbook.
Oh my God.
And remember that picture?
Wait, no. Oh, this is it. You finished?
Ready?
Yes, sir.
So proud of you, man.
I just loved him. He was a great student.
There was a lot of love shown at our ceremonies, and most of it directed to those most deserving, the moms, dads, and other loved ones committed to making this day happen. Our students said it best.
I would like to thank my parents.
For all to see and hear.
My parents, above all people, are the reason for my success.
I'm Pauline. This is so sweet. Very proud.
I'm half excited, half sad.
I'm right there with you, parents. Our daughter Jackie graduated this year, too.
Please move your tassels from the right side to the left.
Congratulations.
Well done. Have a great summer and a great rest of the journey.
This is your valedictorian signing off.
Wake up, wake up, wake up! Let's go! It's time to go! It's time to go! Let's go! Let's go! Come on! Let's go!
Yeah, today's the day. Hey, why are you sleeping? Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's time to go.
Come on, it's time!
What time is it?
Convocation time!
Let's go, gotta go, gotta go, 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 go. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. There's a carpool here. Yeah.
Well, you can't say they're not passionate about their jobs.
The great teachers of Fort Worth ISD have plenty of reasons to celebrate the new school year.
They will be preparing all students for success. All students. Success in college, career, and community leadership. All students. A-L-L, all.
Well said. And plan to join all of us for Convocation 2018. Streaming live to a location near you on August 17th at 9 a.m.
Don't you wish you could just bottle that energy?
JFCC in Philadelphia!
In the American Revolution, there was the militia, there was the redcoats, there were French, there were also Native Americans, there was also slaves that were more a part of our revolution than just what is put in the textbooks.
July 4th,
1776, Congress issues the Declaration of Independence.
I've learned more about the American history, more about the lives of the people.
People that did not physically fight in the war were just as equally impacted by the American Revolution.
At last, the British surrender.
Today was super fantastic, right? That was amazing stuff.
You kind of opened your eyes to a lot of things. The entire day did.
I know I got to come back. There's so much that I didn't know about the American Revolution, and there's so much more to learn.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union.
Now, during the Constitutional Convention, there was a lot of discussion about the executive branch.
I really think it's a good idea to learn from history because you can learn from the past.
First thing Congress did in 1789 while they're meeting in New York City is to craft 12 articles.
It was kind of hard to believe that you were actually sitting in the building. Like you didn't think it was real, but you were literally sitting in these seats where they just made all these big decisions out of nowhere that started our country.
I just found it really interesting, all the history behind that one bell and how much it meant to us.
7 words that really describe today is America, rights, life, freedom, pursuit, happiness, and unified.
We the people do not make history, we are made by history.
JOTC at Valley Forge!
And on December 19, 1777, the Army moved to winter quarters and began building their camp.
Setting up these 12,000 men on these lands, what they call military streets.
For the men of the Army, building the huts was a welcome relief. Tools were scarce and timber had to be dragged to the hut site.
Each one of these huts for the enlisted men would hold a squad, and that's about 12 men.
Today I learned that Valley Forge was legit the birthplace of the Army, which was very interesting.
The experience for me visiting Valley Forge was, it gave me a sense of patriotism and pride for my country.
He rents this out. It was actually a business residence that he rents out for about 6 months. And he has a rather large staff here, a military family that consists of about 20 to 25 people at any given time. So for that reason, he thought this was too confining as a headquarters for the Continental Army.
Bound by determination and training, a renewed Continental Army had taken the field with a spirit strengthened at Valley Forge. A spirit that would carry Washington's seasoned veterans 3 more years to victory at Yorktown in 1781 and beyond.
There are 4 military junior colleges in the nation, you might have heard. This is one of them.
My job is to prepare them for college, but it's also to get them into college. And this is an opportunity to do that for a selected number of cadets out of Fort Worth FWISD.
The building that you just came out of, that is Mettenbach Hall. So Mettenbach Hall services our college admissions and our financial aid.
In the next phase of your life, when you go on to college, choose a place that's going to challenge you. Choose a place that's going to keep you on your toes. Don't look for the easy out.
Once in a lifetime opportunity to talk to a general and to share with them their ambitions, and at the same time he's sharing with them his challenges as the president of his alma mater, Valley Forge Military Academy and College.
We got some cadets from Fort Worth here that are asking questions about your team.
Okay. We have 2 different color guards. We have both an academy one as well as a college one.
Going to a military academy helps me keep an open mind to what I want in my future.
All right, as you know, just keep your voices low and just follow us right in.
JOTC in Gettysburg Battlefield!
You're going to see the entire war unfold, or the portion of Gettysburg unfold before you.
So Lincoln was elected, and he posed such a threat to the slave interest in the South that only 1 month later, they seceded. And they told Abraham Lincoln that he needed to get all of his soldiers out of Fort Sumter. And Abraham Lincoln said, I'm sorry, that's a U.S. military base. They're not going anywhere. They're protecting that harbor. Well, South Carolina opened fire, and this war began.
So far, it's been pretty interesting.
The Battle of Gettysburg lasted 3 days.
Because I didn't really know a lot about what the citizens went through at Gettysburg.
I would very much like to go up into the National Cemetery. I have haversacks in there, and inside these haversacks are different items a soldier would have carried, and we are trying to have them try to identify who would have carried that haversack by examining the contents of their haversack.
It looks like we have possible Union soldier by the name of Payne from the 20th Massachusetts.
We think he's an immigrant because he has an English grammar book.
Pliny White, and what did you find in there?
A ring. He was married.
He would write letters.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of letters. One thing we discover about these Civil War soldiers is they wrote home often. They were homesick.
Sumner Payne turned 16 years old 1 month after the Civil War began in 1861.
Sergeant Philip R. Hamlin was deeply religious and philosophical young man who wrote proficiently to his parents and younger siblings.
Every time I read about Gettysburg or something like that, it was always about soldiers. And this time it was more concentrated about other people's lives that were affected by it.
I'd love to just turn the clock back and be there and just see what's going on. But a lot of times I would turn around and look at you guys and I'd imagine you in the Union blue and turn you into somebody else to try to put perspective on where you were at different places on the battlefield or at the cemetery or whatever. I was trying to really be there, really.
the exception of.
I feel like
In accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened the meeting at 5:32 p.m. in this boardroom with a quorum present, recessed and reconvened open session in the board conference room, adjourned regular session, convened executive session, adjourned executive session, and now we have reconvened open session at 7:14 p.m. in this boardroom with a quorum present. Do I have a motion accepting our consent agenda items with the exception of 11B1? Moved by Trustee Christine Moss, seconded by Trustee Luebanos. Any discussion? Please move to voting. And the motion passes with 8 yeas and 1 abstention. Moving to number 16, action items. Excuse me. There's no personnel, so we'll move to action items. 17A. Adoption of proposed 2018-19 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Child Nutrition Fund. Do I have a motion? Moved by Trustee Moss, seconded by Trustee Robbins. Any discussion? Trustee Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. Thank you, Elsa Charo, for the hard work you put on this budget. I like the school safety, and our safety in our schools are number one priority for students and our teachers and our visitors. So I like how we are spending $12 million for school safety this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Luebanos. Ms. Charo, I want to say thank you to you for your hard work over the years. Your consistencies led this district to exemplary financial ratings, the S&P and Moody's. You've pulled the line as taut, I believe, as you can for the duration. You're working short 2 FTEs right now, and you keep saying that's setting the example, but we need you, and we don't need you short 2 FTEs. You do a great job, yet still, like many ISDs, we're adopting a deficit budget tonight. And I know that hurts you more than it hurts anybody in this room. And if we didn't have you, it would be a larger deficit. But this board and this district has to begin immediately with solutions for next year's budget. And I know you're already there. But I'd just like to see us maximize alternative funding sources, and it's not you, it's the entire team of us. Leverage outside resources designated for a common purpose. And third, I'm excited that our superintendent, along with the ISD superintendent, Hinojosa, will be working at the state level. And we've got to have that work done with the legislators to change TRS, to change funding. And there are just so many things that are inequitable in our funding structure, and how you work within this is beyond me, but you do, and you do a great job. And I just wanted to say thank you. I will be voting against the budget tonight, but my reason is if we continue to adopt deficit budgets, we eventually won't have the 2 months of reserves that we have to have. And I know you need our help, and you have my promise that I'm going to be a hawk. Thank you. Trustee Sutherland.
Thank you, President Jackson. I too will be voting against the budget. I've made my feelings pretty clear throughout the development process. I'd like to add just a couple of things. I'd like to remind the board that we have no budget committee. And once again, that we have no input on the budget before it's presented to the public. It's true it's a draft, but we have no early input. The cuts in the secondary level are really very concerning to me, and I think they are to other people. Just to mention one thing, I was interested in hearing Mr. Poole mention the change in the the student conduct rules. I would like to know how many of you realize that this budget cuts the number of students that will be taken at Metro and middle level in half. So many people feel that we already have too many kids in our school that need a little stronger management, and this is going to cut the number of kids available in half. So I will be voting against this budget myself. I do look forward to our working more on the secondary next year, as Dr. Scribner indicated that would be happening. And I do want to acknowledge that there has been some significant progress in the elementary grades. I think that you could deserve a lot of credit for that, because I had a lot of complaining along the way. But it looks like that system, Mr. Carroll, that I can never remember the name of, seems to be working, so I give you credit for that.
Trustee Robbins.
Thank you, President Jackson. I would like to also thank you, Mrs. Shiro, and your staff for all the good work that you put in. I think that our budgeting process has gotten a lot better over the years, and I'm particularly pleased with your zero-based budgeting approach, where you don't just go look at last year's number and take it up or down or whatever. You make people justify whatever they need year by year by year. Some of us on the school board feel like budgeting is so important that it ought to be a committee of the whole rather than have a budget committee look at things and then bring certain items to the full board. So I very much personally appreciate our ability to do that. Over the years, you have made significant efforts to reduce the large deficit that we adopt at the first of the year, and I know that you will continue to strive to do that. I'm very appreciative of that. I think we all are queasy about adopting a deficit budget, so your efforts to reduce that deficit from the time we adopt it till the end of the next school year is critical, and you do a wonderful job there. So again, I thank you for that. And then I also look for opportunities for us to have more efficiencies through our business operations, and I appreciate your efforts to work with us on that. And I think there are some significant efficiencies that we can plow into the classroom, because I'm leery that we're going to get any more support from state or federal levels, and I think we're going to need to take control of our own destiny, and I think one of the best ways we can do that is through efficiencies that we can generate internally. So thank you, thank your staff. I concur with President Jackson. We don't want you, because of too little staff, we don't want you doing things that would not be good for you. So be careful about that, and please utilize the abilities that you have if you think they're needed, and I would hope you would. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Moss.
Thank you, President Jackson. Dr. Shiro, I just want to say thank you. You know, all the hard work that you've done with this budget. And after all, we did start in January, and you've always asked if we had questions down through the year up until this time. When you work with the legislators and you're in Austin and you see how hard and what a difficult time it is for, they have with getting our budget to the school district. They have a hard time allocating the funds. We never get what we really need to operate our schools, but you do a very good job. You never know the amount of money we will receive until, is it August? And so you have to do the budget without actually knowing what we will get. So I think that's a very, very great skill that you have, creating a budget, you would say, blindfolded. But I just want to say thank you, and to continue to do what you do, because you've done a very good job. There are other districts that's struggling, but at this time they do have a special committee working on funding for the schools. So I'm hoping that we will get more funds. So And then I will be supporting the budget. And persons that's going to vote against the budget, I was reading, I think in the newspaper, or I think we were sent an email and said that there would be board members voting against the budget. So, you have to expect that, because across the country, board members vote against the budget. They had a hard time in Houston. Yeah, they had a really battle in Houston, but they finally got it completed last night or night before last. But I just want to say that you're on the right track, and thank you for supporting what board members do, because we, as board members, we always beg a lot for our districts, and you try and do what we ask. And I just want to say thank you. But anyway, I would just say board members have to vote their conscience, and if they are not supporting it, that'll be fine. We just have to continue on, because sometimes you make deals with the devil, and it comes out in the end. So again, thank you.
Trustee Paz.
Thank you, President Jackson. Mrs. Shiro, thank you so much for this budget. You and your staff are consummate professionals, and every year we ask to start this process earlier, and every year you oblige. And I feel that I've been given significant opportunity to provide input throughout this process. And actually, I'd like to remind the board that last year we actually voted to keep our budget committee as policy as a committee of the whole. And that's because this is such an important process, and it is so important for us to all be at the table and be invested in being involved in this very important process. I can't remember, what was the budget that we adopted, the deficit that we adopted last year?
It was right at 49 million.
I know. And what did we actually end up with?
I predict it's going to be probably less than 5.
Yeah. So, that's one of the things that I had a really hard time learning as a young school board member. I like to think I'm still a young school board member, but some people might disagree with that now. That just because you're adopting a deficit budget, that you're going to end up in the hole $40 million. Over the years, I've learned that a budget is a plan, and we don't always have all of the information for that plan. So we amend that plan as we go, and every month, pretty much, we adopt a budget amendment, and this is how the process works. And you always do a great job, and I feel very comfortable adopting this deficit budget, because I know that your staff is going to do a great job. You have worked on the priorities that the superintendent has set, that is proving to be effective in helping kids learn. And I am excited to approve this budget tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Needham. Where's in your way?
Ms. Shiro, I thanked you and your staff earlier, so thank you again. I like Ms. Paz just said, we may start out with the budget originally having a deficit, and I see almost every year we end up with, as you said, with maybe 5 million at the most, and sometimes it's in the black a year from now. So I have faith that you're going to do that again. I would ask again, the staff and board members, we talk about tightening our belts. When Dr. Scribner came, we talked to him about cutting the programs of choice, the ones that aren't being well subscribed to. And I hope that staff will bring us those in the near future so that we can really start doing that, because they are very expensive for 10, 20 people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. Like Ms. Paz was saying, I was talking to Ms. Charo early on. it's a budget, it's nothing fixed. I mean, we can make amendments along the way, tighten our belts in central administration, put more teachers in the classroom. We have seen the effects of the leadership academies. We have spent money, and those leadership academies have come back. So for that reason, I'll support this budget as along the way we can have modifications, amendments along the way to have what we need for teachers and for our students.
Thank you. Trustee Dr. T.A. Sims.
I'd like to say thank you, Dr. for this budget. School board members have to make tough decisions and votes. If you can't make them, you need to go home. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Ramos.
Want to say thank you, Dr. Scribner and Elsie, for the hard work that you've put in, the workshops, to help me as over 5 years continue to learn and grow with one of the most important decisions that we make as a board. Want to thank you for everything that you've done to this point. It just seems that when I saw that we had 3 action items, I didn't know they were going to be this explosive, right? Especially as I've monitored my Twitter and certain, as Mrs. Moss, who's one of my heroes, let me say sheroes, that's speaking truth to power. You know, these are the kind of days that are tough, that I'm reminded of why I ran, and also makes it easier when someone like Ms. Pauline Valenciano was honored on a day like today, for us to have the courage to speak some truth to power. In fact, if some conversations were had, to have exchanges for votes for officers, I'm so glad that those conversations did not come my way, because my vote would not have been for sale. So I appreciate everything that y'all have done to this point.
Thank you, Trustee Ramos. Please move to voting. And the motion passes 6-3. Moving on to 17B, approval of the 2018-19 Student Code of Conduct. Dr. Scribner?
Do we need a motion first, or do we need a motion first?
Yeah, we do. I thought you were pulling your mic.
Good.
Moved by Trustee Luebanos, seconded by Trustee Moss.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Jackson, and thank you to Mr. Poole, who pointed out some concerns around this, and I had the opportunity to speak with him, and I know Chief Molinar, who's now transitioning into the policy and planning position. We'd like to provide some additional insight to his public comment.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner. I would like to take this time to share with the board trustees that after receiving feedback from Mr. Poole, it has been decided that Dr. Washington and Dr. Pena are future Chief of Elementary, and I will be developing written procedures regarding student discipline referrals that address submissions of data in our student management system focus, administrator response to referrals, and teacher communication from the campus administrators to our teachers. Another area of concern that will be addressed before the start of the school year will be communication to the teacher regarding the results of the student referrals before the students are returned to the class. The leadership team continues to encourage our teachers, as well as our teacher associations groups, to contact the chiefs of leadership directly with any individual concerns from a campus regarding our student code of conduct.
That concludes our comments. Thank you.
Trustee Robbins.
Thank you, President Jackson. When I thought we were going to vote on this last meeting, I asked a staff member if the code of conduct would be the appropriate vehicle to discuss restorative justice or not, and I'm not sure that it is the proper vehicle, but I think in what you just described, Ms. Molinar, that I would like for us to more fully explain restorative justice to our constituents, to talk a little bit about why we are doing that the goal is to keep kids in class, not to send them out of class. We certainly do not want to do things that don't allow our teachers to teach, because that's obviously the priority. But we're trying to come up with ways to keep kids in school and keep kids in class. And I know we're rolling it out in a very methodical way, which is what we must do, but I'm I'm hopeful that we can do that as rapidly as possible, because I think we've already seen good results from that where we have experienced it. And I would hope that more and more of our schools could have that same opportunity as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Paz?
Stephen Poole, I'm going to call you out because for as many times as you come down here and yell at us, I did not think that tonight would be the catalyst for us to really kind of get this conversation started. So thank you. Just what Mr. Robbins said, I have a lot of concerns about the way that we write policy, and not we, just in general, that policy gets written, because it has a lot of unintended consequences, like the one that was brought up tonight. And, you know, for a very, very long time, probably forever, public education has had policies that have had unintended consequences for a lot of our kids that have allowed them to miss out on opportunities. And, you know, just because we have to be thoughtful about the way that we are moving forward and changing these things, and that they don't have the counter impact on you know, our teachers in the classroom. I think that I mean, I'm excited that that you're coming back and we're going to actually put some procedures in place and be more intentional about this moving forward. And that's not, I hope that is not taken as a diss or knock to anyone in the past who, you know, we're learning every day. So thank you, and I hope that we can have give some of our teacher associations a seat at the table, and maybe get some feedback from them as we move forward, and that we're not just thinking about one side versus the other, but how we can really make our classrooms a community where kids can work together with our teachers, and it can be a happy place for everyone, because I've heard that it's not a really fun time to be a teacher right now. So not just in Fort Worth ISD, especially not in Fort Worth ISD, across the country. But we need to be doing everything we can to make things good for them. Thank you.
Trustee Ramos?
Thank you, President Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Robbins, for making a lot of the comments that's going to save me from having to make a number of others. But I will piggyback or veggie back off of restorative practices. That something that I've mentioned on this microphone before is what I hear at the statewide and the national level at conferences such as TASA-TASB, at MASBA, the Black Caucus, CUBE, the National Hispanic Council, the Black Council, Indigenous Council. This is a hot topic, and this is one where we all have pretty much agreed statewide and nationwide that the term school to prison pipeline should not include the word school. That our job is to educate, not to incarcerate. And as I'm reviewing the data through my doctoral program right now, I was recently this weekend reviewing the data and seeing what 2016 looked like. We're still in a position where majority of our young people that are being suspended and kicked out of schools are black males. The majority that we're kicking out is black females. There is a shift in demographics that has happened. This board has been courageous in adopting policy, forming a committee, a strong committee of racial and ethnic equity, where 4 of the trustees are able to sit on, and we are hearing them loud and clear. The parents, the students, educators that are as angry on the other side of this conversation. And I agree that we shouldn't have the word school in there, and I definitely don't like that Fort Worth ISD is where we're at. And I know I've had courageous conversations with leadership at this table who are strongly committed to changing that shift, because we know that we have 89% children of color. Our disproportionate minority contact has parts of our community furious. And they are not always here to express their anger and their frustration. But as many of you know, what I do for a living, I do have a window that looks into the facility that does have majority black and brown males incarcerated. That is no longer acceptable from the work that we've done at the Equity Committee. If you're more curious about it, you can look up the Texas Appleseed Report. You can see that cities like Districts like Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and others are already engaged in this struggle, and they don't use terms as, I'm just going to keep it real again. I heard a term recently used by one of my colleagues, those bad kids. You hear my voice shake. That to me demonstrates and shows the implicit bias and the perception that we have of children that we're supposed to be educating, not sending down the fast track to disrupting communities that may not look the way they have historically. So I am proud of the work that you Fort Worth ISD administrators are doing, the work that's reflected in the Student of Code of Conduct. I think that a number of our communities will be proud of you. They may not be here, but I know that I live in one of those communities that used to be the top 10, one of the top 10 worst zip codes in the state of Texas. Decisions made by this board historically, unintentionally I have to assume, when we segregated children and put them in classrooms, we unintentionally created gang alliances all over our city, and the gang violence spilled out into the streets. And I know because I was a gang interventionist for 12 years, but I didn't know how policy was being made and passed. Now I do. We don't have bad kids. And our superintendent courageously said, we have systems that are flawed, and it's on us to address them. Those are my 2 cents for that piece. Thank you, President Jackson.
Thank you. Trustee Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson, and thank you, Mr. Poole and Ms. Molinar for doing this. How many campus behavior coordinators we have? Do we have one at each campus, or we have?
So under the Student Code of Conduct, each campus has to have a designated campus behavior. And that's usually assigned to an administrator on the campus. And then our middle school and high schools have what we call intervention specialists assigned to them. Some campuses have more than one, and then our leadership academies also have intervention specialists as well. All of our counselors are also trained in restorative practices. All of our principals and assistant principals have been trained as well with the restorative practices, in addition to the campuses that are in the cohort 1 and cohort 2. And I'm happy to bring that information to you with some of our data or suspension data, as well as which campuses have implemented restorative practices to see that correlation.
And can we have from previous years, if any issues with discipline relate to the IR campuses?
Sure, we can break it down by IR campus. That's not a problem, sir.
Thank you.
Trustee Moss.
Thank you, President Jackson. Once we complete the Code of Conduct, Student Code of Conduct, what can we do to ensure that more parents actually read the Code of Conduct? I remember when you came down and said that, I forgot the percentage, but it was a very low percentage of parents returning the signature sheet. So are you thinking about how we can reach more parents?
So one of the initiatives that we are implementing this year is online registration for all of our students, and that includes our parents, of course, filling out the online registration. The Student Code of Conduct is a part of that, and then our parents will have access to that during that registration. We are going to be rolling out a communication plan. Our communication department has been working on that, and it's about all the necessary forms, including the Code of Conduct. But I do agree with you, Ms. Moss. One of the things that we as a team want to increase is communication across the board. We know that our stakeholders, especially our parents and our community members, need more communication about what is happening on our campuses. In addition to academics, and our Student Code of Conduct is definitely one that we need to highlight at parent meetings and parent education classes as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just wonder, is it any way, when you go in for registration as a parent, you know how you click, 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 click?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it any way you'll know how long the click is going to be between the last sentence and approving the Student Code of Conduct?
As a parent, I will test that out myself, and I will let you know. I can't
Thank
answer
you,
that.
because
but-
that's an easy one. You know, you just click
Yes,
right
ma'am.
on out.
Yes.
Because it's going to be difficult to sit there at your computer and read 200 pages.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
But I will be testing it out as a parent, so I will give you firsthand information. on
Okay, and
that.
I'll let you know because I have a grandparent.
And as a
that's-
grandparent, I encourage you as well.
Thank you.
Trustee Paz.
One more thing. Did you just say that all of the principals and APs have been trained in restorative practices?
Yes, we have. We've had multiple sessions with our principals and our assistant principals on restorative practices. Now, there's different levels of the training, of course, but we have offered and have trained all of our principals and assistant principals last year and this year, multiple sessions to attend.
Okay, so so now that the training has happened, how are we ensuring fidelity with that process and that they're actually holding true to the principles of restorative practices? Because it's my understanding, based on the report that we received when we first approved this model, that would involve circling, where parents are brought in, they're given the option to, like if there is a bullying situation, both of the families are contacted and given the option to do circling. And are we just not at that point yet, or are we? I mean, because it's my understanding that is not happening.
So I think it's like, with the campuses being varied and the administrators, restorative practices is something that we have to continue to train and continue to educate even our administrators on, and feeling comfortable in the process. It's an entirely different process for anyone to facilitate. Participation in a circle can be a lot easier than facilitating that circle. So we have restorative practice specialists who go out and they assist and model for our campus principals, as well as our assistant principals, as well as the counselors on the campus who have had the training. It's still taken that leap of faith of trying it and experiencing it and providing that leadership on the campus. And that's something we're very dedicated to working with all of our principals and assistant principals on, along with Mr. Steinert and Mr. Riddick and their specialists as well. Are we there at 100%? No. Does every situation require or would be appropriate to circle with? No, and some parents are not interested in circling as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into that, but we are definitely committed to it, and we're really still trying to have our principals and assistant principals just really comfortable and to facilitate those circles.
Okay, so what kind of accountability systems do we have in place to ensure that there's follow through on this?
So we do, our campuses are involved in the actual cohort training that have had the teachers trained as well as the leadership. There is more accountability because they are assigned our restorative practice, our behavior specialists who go out to the campus and they track how many circles, they've tracked their discipline data. But for the campuses not involved in the cohort, we do not have that strong of a monitoring system in place for the circling, but that is something we definitely can look into as we're working on the code of conduct as well and the expectations. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Trustee Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. So what can we do so that teachers feel that they have the support from the principals and the APs and administration on this issue? And then, is there any way that we can, because I know some students will do the click for the code of conduct without showing to the parents. So when something happens, can we go back and say, you accepted, you signed for it, even though it may not be the parent, it was probably the student who did it on their phone.
So it is part of the parent has to do the registration, and then we also have a place with their code of conduct that we ask the parent to review it with their student as well. Of course, that mostly takes place at home. I do believe that for our secondary campuses as well as our elementary campuses. It's about setting those expectations and really providing the campus at the beginning of the school year with what's the expectation to be a student. One of the things that I know for elementary level that we implemented was a positive behavior campus plan. Each campus had to even submit to leadership. What does it mean to be a student at, let's say, J.T. Stevens? What does it mean to be a Cardinal? Because that's their mascot. Every student should walk in the door with what's the high expectations, what's the positive expectations. Of course, we want to know and be able to share our consequences, but more importantly, every student should walk in knowing, like, this is what it means to be a Cardinal at J.T. Stevens. I'm proud to be here. This is how I'm a responsible student, a responsible citizen. And that's that first communication piece. And when you have a bad moment or a moment that is maybe what we would call a referral, discipline referral, then of course we have a consequence that has to be shared with that. We do leave it up to the campus administrators to communicate that to the students, but I think it's very clear that the leadership, our chiefs of leadership need to ensure that's happening. We can't just leave it in the hands of our parents to communicate the code of conduct. We need to take a more active role of sharing that part with our students, not just once at the beginning of a school year assembly, but continuously. But there's a way to share the code of conduct of being a responsible citizen.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Motion was moved by trustee Luébanos, seconded by trustee Moss. Please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. 17C, approval to set parameters to be included in the request for proposals, an RFP for food delivery service management company. Do I have a motion? Trustee Ramos, seconded by trustee Paz. Dr. Scribner, do you have a few words?
Yes, I do. President Jackson, members of the board, we do RFPs all the time. However, with this RFP, we wanted to make sure we had the direction from the board clear and transparent and understood. Based on the last two presentations that we made to the board regarding food services, I wanted just to quickly review what we, the team, understood as the parameters that we would frame this RFP, which will be sent to the Texas Department of Agriculture. We understood that the RFP would include a focus on improved food quality, that it would include updated cafeteria and kitchen and equipment, that would allow for campus staff to remain as employees of Fort Worth ISD, that would include improved equipment maintenance, increased meal delivery options, meaning different kinds of meals and salad options and salad bars and things, assistance with adherence to federal regulations. We'd have to do it, obviously, within the context of the federal regulations and laws. And finally, that it would be supported with marketing and nutrition education. If there are any other items, or if these are incorrect, just wanted to provide the board an opportunity to give us guidance moving forward.
Okay. Trustee Ramos.
So I have not been hiding from the fact that I have, that this is the number one topic young people have with me. And this, from the second that I ran for office, as I asked students in Fort Worth ISD, including my own sons, what is your greatest concern? And their greatest concern said it was the quality of food. What I have learned in 5 years is to not pit young people against adults. And so what I've learned in 5 years is that, as I was very vocal during the campaign and in the last 5 years, that I had forgotten that there was amazing cafeteria staff and administrators and folks here who were doing their absolute best. The real talk is, again, that however we have gotten to this point within our system is not adequately doing the job that it's designed to do. And unlike the gentleman who spoke earlier, I have reviewed the data, and I, as one trustee, see that this is an issue for us. So Dr. Scribner, I'll say that for me, an I statement. You heard us correctly on everything that you mentioned. And also for anyone who says that we ought to wait, a wise person who actually ended up losing his life said, waiting almost always means never. 5 years to get to this point. The longer we wait, the more children go without. And I have a hard time supporting anything other than moving forward and allowing the administration to do its job. So I am full support of what you all are working towards. I do have 2 things I'd like to add to the process. This is, again, feedback from young people. I'm going to reveal for the first time ever who my kitchen cabinet is. That is a political strategy team. It's young people. And so those young people have now graduated and are holding me accountable to say, Mr. Ramos, 5 years ago we were in school. We have now graduated. We're now at the universities. We have not forgotten. So I said, what are some more suggestions we need? They said, first and foremost, Mr. Ramos, please allow students to have a taste testing portion or something to that effect. I don't know what the proper verbiage or terminology is, but the young people lead this movement and their voice be clearly heard as to what they think is going to be the best quality of food on whoever or whatever that looks like, how we proceed. So actually, I'm just going to leave it at that. Just that we include young people during this process and that be evident so that be as unbiased as it possibly can, with the only exception, the only bias I want to hear about is from students. And I definitely would look forward to whatever improvements we make, that more young people eat, and that more young people and more of our staff are supported and feel supported within our educational system. Thank you.
Trustee Dr. T.A. Sims.
Thank you, President Jackson. I'm not going to play politics with this. Number one, there was a lot that I've heard through the grapevine of meetings before the meeting. I wasn't privileged to be in the meeting before the meeting. And then when I ask questions, I'm not getting the proper answers that I expect. And basically, I don't see why we can't do the same thing that anyone else can do. We have a surplus. Why don't we spend that surplus and make the food better? I'm going to be voting no because, as I said before, I'm concerned about our employees and our employee benefits. And I don't see how we can outsource food service and our employees receive the same benefits that we give them with the teacher retirement program. Thank you.
Trustee Robbins.
Thank you, President Jackson. I would like to tag on to what Dr. Sims just said, except I'm looking at it from a little bit different perspective. And that is, what if we end up getting a firm to manage our food service, and they have a benefit program that far exceeds what the Fort Worth ISD has or is able to offer? Would our employees, who I think probably are our most passionate employees, they're the ones that show the love more than any of the other employees as far as I've been able to perceive, and you know, frequently you do that with food, so that's a good thing. But if we decide as a board to work with a company that can offer our employees better benefits, would they have an opportunity to, or could they have an opportunity to opt into those benefits? Because as we all know, the benefits that we offer, in many cases involving health care and so on, are not the best. And this could be a way to help improve some people's lives and their families. So would that be possible?
Thank you. Trustee Sutherland.
I don't have much eloquence, except I just don't feel this is ready to go. I'm very skeptical that a profit-making firm can serve the same food for less money. It's just not real clear to me, and it's too important. And with respect to what the kids want, as somebody who's raised a few kids, I'm telling you, We don't want them to eat what they want to eat. We want them to eat what they need to eat. And you might check and see what the USDA requirements are, because you'll find they're very strict. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Luébanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. And Dr. Scrivener said we will keep the employees. And I just want to make sure one more time that we are keeping the employees, and to the employers who were here early on, to let them know that no one is losing their job. They were asking, they were afraid that they were going to lose their job, and no one is losing their job. Para los empleados que estuvieron aquí por la tarde, asegurarles que dentro de esta nueva, lo que suceda, nadie va a perder su trabajo. La pregunta de ellos será si van a perder su trabajo, y la respuesta es nadie va a perder su trabajo con el nuevo contrato. No one is losing their job if we go to an outsourced vendor. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Needham.
Thank you, President Jackson. Mr. Robbins, your question didn't get answered, did it? Can you answer? Well, but I want to know the answer, and then I have a question.
Thank you.
Dr. Scrivener said.
Absolutely. So the third parameter, first, improve food quality, second, update cafeterias and kitchens. The third was allow for campus staff to remain as employees of Fort Worth ISD, which would allow them to remain on the TRS, the retirement system. I'm also hearing that to provide an option if an employee wanted to join another organization, that he or she would have that option. But what I hear the parameters being is that the district not compel an employee either to leave or remain. So allow for campus staff to remain, or allow for campus staff to have the option either to remain in Fort Worth ISD employee with TRS, and then I think I would need some guidance as to if we want to provide an option.
I assumed we were going to let them have an option, but maybe the other board members, I would like to see it written so that certainly they could stay part of the Fort Worth ISD.
And the TRS.
Yes, if they wished to join another company, assuming we get one, that they would be able to join that company. Are you okay with that?
Is that something that we have to?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I think we came up with this list based on the board conversation and based on the board comments. So if I am hearing that the parameters of this RFP would allow for campus staff to remain as Fort Worth ISD employees, continue to be part of the TRS retirement system, or have the option to choose to join another organization, if I can get a sense from the board, then we'll move forward that way.
Thank you.
Trustee Sims?
That's confusing to me, because if the employees remain with us, then they don't work for the... I said that is confusing.
Yeah.
Employees can't work for us and then work for somebody else. If we're doing an RFP, then the employees will basically work for the company who wins the RFP. Is that not right?
We certainly...
And I've asked, pardon me, I did ask these questions before, and I asked that we put them in writing and give them to me so I can study them. I've not received them either.
Sure. We certainly can provide those, and any contract would have to be approved by the Texas Department of Agriculture, and they do provide standardized RFP and contracts. I think the point here being allowing for campus staff to remain as Fort Worth ISD employees, and then look at the management, look at the infrastructure, look at the product as being provided to us by another organization. And the RFP, we're not voting on the RFP tonight. We're simply approving parameters with which we would submit the RFP, put it on the street, and then come back at a later date for the board to either vote thumbs up or thumbs down on that RFP.
Trustee Robbins?
Thank you again, President Jackson. I just want to make sure that we give our employees every option. I don't want to close anything off at this point, and this board is going to ultimately decide what we end up doing. But if it turns out to be better for an employee and their families to do something else, if we can provide that option to them, then I think that's fine. If we decide after we go through the RFP that we don't want to do that, that's fine too. But I don't want to preclude anything at this stage, quite frankly. So.
Thank you. Trustee Paz?
I guess my question is just more technical from the RFP process, because I don't know, I'm not that familiar with how the RFP process works. I mean, I know that we do a lot of them. But I do know how health insurance works from an employer's side. So if I am a food service company, a food service provider, and I wanted to submit a bid for an RFP, but I had to provide an option for some employees to opt in, or some people to opt in to become my employees and be on my health insurance, or some to remain employed there. I would think that would, you would need to know how many employees you would be looking at, and what because that's going to change, because the cost of the insurance would change, the cost of the employer would change. And I'm not poo-pooing it. I actually, that's the one, kind of the one thing, the one reason that I would maybe support actually allowing a company to outsource our employees, is because I know how awful TRS is, and and I think that could would maybe be ultimately better for people who might want it. But for so many other reasons, I really would like to keep our employees. But I'm not opposed to giving them the option. I just am worried about the technical side of things, what kind of technical barriers that might provide from us actually receiving bids from the highest or high qualified companies. So I don't know, and maybe it's not an issue.
Trustee Moss?
I can answer these questions. I can answer this. Dr. Scrivener, I can certainly take
Sure, go ahead.
attempt to answer the question. Let me just preface it to say that the RFP for food services is far different than RFPs that we do on a routine basis, all right? It's regulated by the Texas Department of Agriculture, as Dr. Scrivener said. With that said, they have like canned RFPs and contracts, and those have options in them. And the thing is so once we get that RFP, we can look at options, and we can maybe do any number of things to determine, a percentage of employees, that would want to stay with the district, or, go with a selected company. But before we do anything, we would have to put that RFP together, and we'd have to send it back to the Texas Department of Agriculture. We can't do anything. We just can't put it out on the street. And so to me, there would be additional dialogue with the board before this goes on. It's just because that's just the nature of this type of contract. And so what we're just looking for is some guidance to move forward, get the documents that we have to. They won't even be out until November. We have until February to put them together, because they're very strict timelines that we don't want to miss if in fact we want to do this. And so I think that's where we're going with this. So give us the opportunity to get the RFP, look at some of the options that we have, and move forward so we can come back before the 15th of February with some guidance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Moss?
Thank you, President Jackson. That's all I wanted to say is about the options, because you might have employees in Fort Worth ISD that might want to work with the other company for advancement purposes, moving into management because of the promotions that they do. And also, many of our employees do not have health care. I mean, the policy costs too much, so they don't have health care. And it might be an opportunity for them to be with another company and get health care coverage. So, but we still need to follow your lead, Dr. Shiro. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. I think you answered my question. So we get this document together by November, and we send it to the Department of Agriculture between November and February, and they say if we can do it, yes or no, and then we come back to select a vendor. Is that?
Yes, the thing is once we send an RFP back to the Texas Department of Agriculture, they look at it and they say yes or no, or make these modifications. And then when we finally come to a consensus that we can do an RFP and these are the terms and conditions, then they allow us to go out and publish it. And we can only publish it with the companies that have been approved by the TDA. And there's a list of them, a long list of them. And we got to send them to all of them, all right? And then after that point, we get the responses back. But the RFP will guide these companies on what we're soliciting back and what their proposal would be based upon the scope. And so I think at this point, we just need to get, moving, and once the RFP comes out of the TDA, we can start looking at what our options really are. We haven't done this before, in Fort Worth at least, and then come back and report what our options are to you, and so we can move forward.
So it could be a year before we
could not, they would not permit us to start before July 1 at this point, until July 1 of 19.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sims.
Well, I'm still concerned about employees working for two people. They couldn't work for us and whoever wins the RFP. Am I right or wrong on that?
You're correct, Dr. Sims. They couldn't work for both companies.
Okay.
I personally have worked in a district that has it, and there's some that have basically gone with the company and some that have stayed. And sometimes the new option is if in fact you have new hires, then they have the option. So there are other things we can consider, and so I think we just keep, our minds open and see what happens.
One thing that I know is many employees work for the district for the teacher retirement, so.
Yes.
And they come to work for us because of that. Thank you anyway.
Ms. Shiro, I do have a question. Say we were to outsource with another company, and some of our employees, we found out it was opportunity for them to be advanced with another company. We then decided to stop utilizing that company 3 years into it. Where are our employees then? Do we have to buy back into TRS for them? Do they buy back into TRS?
No, the thing is if an employee would decide to leave the TRS system, then that would be a total their option. When you leave TRS, you can leave your annuity there in case you ever come back. It's still there for you. Yep. So it's not necessary, but they could also liquidate the annuity. That's totally up to them. And so it's on an individual case-by-case basis what they do if they exit TRS.
But if they were to exit and then we exited a contract, we would then put our employees at risk, or they could come back to us, or they go with the other company.
Yeah, they could come back.
I think that's something that we have to be clear on.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Needham.
Would I be correct in answering Dr. Sims' question? Aren't we talking about if we had a new outsourced it, that the company would provide management? And so the employees, the cafeteria workers, doesn't matter if they are part of our system or their system, they still would report to the person in charge of their school or whatever. They're not going to report to the company and us. Aren't I right? Okay, thank you.
I didn't hear that. What was that answer?
I'll tell you that.
It's a good discussion. Okay, move to voting. And the motion passes 7-2. Are there any comments by board members this evening? If so, raise your hand until the computer catches up. Trustee Ramos.
I wanted to give a lot of love and recognition to amazing folks at Diamond Hill Community. The Diamond Hill Foundation is a newly found group through amazing alumni that supported and partnered with TCU. And Fort Worth ISD was very, very amazing support, and I want to give special thanks to Mr. Cavazos and his team. There was a mural that was there for a number of years that students and leaders there in the community wanted to remove and do something new, and a collaboration happened with art teachers from all over Fort Worth ISD, particularly Pauline came out and supported students and art teacher with Mr. David Orona, who is fantastic over at Manuel Jara. Just great work. We had over 300 TCU students in the Frog Camp that came and did some amazing work, and the foundation provided lunch for the volunteers, and TCU provided lunch for their students, and we're really, really proud of the work that was done out there. And also, I got to hear firsthand of the excitement of the opening of the field house, which will be next month. I want to thank that entire team who's made all that possible. There's a lot of excitement in the Diamond Hill community. Thank you.
Trustee Ramos, Polly owes you one because you sent Nick Torres to us, and we appreciate him. He's a great principal. Hey, he is great. Trustee Moss.
President Jackson, just a reminder to the board, Summer Leadership Institute will be in Fort Worth starting Wednesday afternoon. It's at the Omni Hotel. Our Senate Bill Training 1566, that's required by all board members by September of 2018, will be presented at SLI. I think it's 3 sessions over the 3-day period. And SLI is, it's Thursday, 6:28 through Saturday, 6:30. The special training is it's Wednesday afternoon, which I think is tomorrow. It starts tomorrow. So Senate Bill 1566, training, and the training is Governance for Improved Student Performance. Senate Bill 1566 starts tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m., and it includes dinner.
Trustee Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. Today I visited Texas Western University, and we have great students from Fort Worth ISD district doing a lot of STEM programs. We have a great teacher from Diamond Hill, I believe, teaching STEM 1 and 2 engineering to all the students. So, and we provide the transportation for the students. So I want to thank the Transportation Department and this board for approving money for those students to attend summer school. Thank you.
Thank you, and on that, we're adjourned.